We're in the midst of a huge transformation where our peers, communities, and workplaces are all really melding into one. Welcome to Reimagining Company Culture. My name is Christina Giordano, she, her, and hers, and I am the Senior Partnerships Manager here at AllVoices. Today, I am super excited to welcome our next guest onto the interview series, Mija Lieberman. She is the Diversity and Inclusion Analyst at Unity. Mija, it's so good to see you. If you want to share a little bit about yourself, including your pronouns, and when you were younger, do you remember how exactly you answered the question, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Thank you so much for having me, Christina. My name is Mija. I use she, her pronouns. And when I was growing up, I said that I wanted to be a film critic. I always really enjoyed watching movies and giving my opinions. And I thought, what better way to do a career? But now I find myself in DEI and I love people as a whole.
I love that. I always think it's interesting to ask what we thought we would be when you were younger. You fast forward to today. Can you share a little bit more? How do you think your personal journey has really led you up until this point to be at Unity and specifically in diversity, equity, and inclusion work?
Yeah, well, when I was in school growing up, I was always involved in different student groups. And I grew up in Berkeley, California, which is like a well-known town rooted in activism and student unionizing. So I was involved in various different, you'd call them affinity groups. In high school, I was involved in an Asian student union. In college, I really found my place in a multiracial student alliance, which you don't see very often, but really made me feel connected and like I belonged. And then when I started my first job, which was at a company called Niantic, I was a lead for one of our employee resource groups there and was very active and didn't realize that I could make a career out of DEI until I sort of found myself with a mentor in that space who really invested in my professional development and showed me the ropes and ultimately led me to my current role at Unity, working in DEI in the games and tech industry.
I love that. As a former employee resource group leader, I am really proud to say that one of the reasons why I loved working at previous organizations as well as my current one is because of employee resource groups and that sense of community and connectedness that you were talking about as well. Can you tell me about the employee resource groups or ERGs that are present at Unity and who was the first?
Yeah, absolutely. So our employee resource groups have been on a journey here. They actually only started a couple of years ago in 2020, long before I joined Unity, but after you've seen it at some other companies. And there were 5 that were started all at the same time. Those original employee resource groups were for Asian employees, Black employees, Latinx employees, LGBTQ plus employees and women employees and their allies. And they all started in a work from home environment. So that comes, of course, with its own challenges, but was also a very necessary component of community building at such an unsure time in people's work lives, but also in society at large. And then I joined Unity in late 2021. And this year we've had 4 additional employee resource groups start. One is for service members, so veterans and military families and their allies. One is around access, disabilities, and neurodiversity. One is for Muslim employees addressing Islamophobia and important religious holidays, and one is for caregivers, parents, and also those raising aging relatives, and creates a great way to have intersectional discussions around all of these different identities.
I love that 4 were recently formed, that there are a lot of opportunities to be involved in the community and also as allies as well. What is the process for starting a new employee resource group when employees want to raise their hand to really form this specific community and do it in their workplace?
I'll caveat that since I'm relatively new to Unity, this process is underway, and becoming formalized, but with these new employee resource groups, the first thing that they did was approach myself or another member of the inclusion team to address why they felt that this group was missing from Unity's inclusion discussions up to this point, and why they felt that a significant number of employees would benefit from a group like this. We define our ERGs as having shared a lived experience and identity that has historically been marginalized. And that's the criteria that we use to support them formally with funding and time investment from our inclusion team. And in order to begin formally, they need a mission statement. They need some objectives and KPIs tied to that mission. And we also ask them to nominate an executive sponsor to make sure that they are able to escalate those issues all the way up to the leadership level.
Yeah, I think having the opportunity to be an executive sponsor, and I know when we discussed as well, you help provide guidance and support for ERGs as well. You mentioned kind of that funding aspect, and I'm sure there's a lot of programming that happens as well. How do you support each employee resource group and the leaders there?
Well, to start, I really wanted to just get to know all of our employee resource groups leaders as much as I could. So I attended several of their planning meetings, still continue to do so, as well as their general monthly meetings to get a better sense of who their members are and how they're engaging with the leadership thus far. And I've also helped our ERGs write charters so that they have formal documents to really express to the wider Unity employee audience what their mission is, what they're trying to accomplish, and why someone should be involved as an ally in their employee resource group. Since my team has started, all of our employee resource groups have been equipped with executive sponsors. They've also designed logos and created intranet pages so they can better communicate to the rest of our employees as Unity continues to grow. And we've also started monthly leadership meetings that include all of the ERG leaders to make sure that everyone is on the same page and we can address issues that might be affecting more than just one employee resource group at a time. And my team has been helpful in providing guidelines around how to use their annual ERG budget.
Yeah, I think it's really helpful in terms of what you were talking about. There's a lot that employee resource groups can do internally and externally. You mentioned that charter and mission statement and a lot of processes behind it as well. Taking a kind of step back here, thinking about employee resource groups, what is the goal of employee resource groups in your mind? What is your philosophy around that? And what is it clearly not in terms of ERGs? I know that some folks involve ERG leaders in their recruiting process. They're not full-time recruiters. People have full-time jobs, but I want to make sure that we clearly define kind of what the goals could be and how you see Unity ERGs playing a role in the company culture.
Of course. So our ERG leaders have definitely been requested to participate in various things, but I try to hone in on what they actually do have control over. So while they could be a part of a recruiting process, unless they are the hiring manager, they may not be the person who is the final decision maker at the end of the day. What employee resource groups really excel in is creating a sense of belonging and increasing employee engagement as a retention tool. So our ERGs at Unity foster inclusion through our framework of empathy, respect, and opportunity. These are how we live our values at Unity, and they're well-known words within our communications via Slack and email. And they're concepts that our employees are familiar with and want to be able to embody in every aspect of their day-to-day work, inside and outside of Unity. So I believe that the goal is to really create a culture of inclusion, to empower their members to spread empathy, respect, and opportunity far and wide, and to support retention efforts through improving employee well-being. I think that ERGs are not just interest groups that could be a Slack channel like coffee lovers or bikers, or anyone posting pictures of their dogs, cats, other pets. They're wonderful and cute, but they ultimately don't define someone's lived experience working at a company or an organization. And I also believe that ERGs shouldn't purely be used to elevate a company's external brand or increase revenue and innovation without properly recognizing these ERG leaders for this important work.
Folks who are listening as a podcast, I am fervently nodding my head to that as well, and ensuring that people kind of set those healthy boundaries and also really define the goals of ERGs, the role that ERG leaders can play as well. And there's a ton of research out there that shows that if you feel connected to your team members, if you feel like you belong in an organization, then you're more likely to stay and also do better work. So it's a win-win-win literally for everyone. I know in these conversations, a lot of questions come up around how are ERG leaders compensated and celebrated. So I would love to ask how that happens at Unity, especially as more articles continue coming up around ERG leader salaries and compensation and all of those conversations happening out into the ether.
So I'm actually in the process of formalizing a proposal for reward and recognition. Nothing has been fully approved yet, but my goal is to be able to compensate some of our leaders of our ERGs and to also increase their annual budgeting, but most importantly, create recognition pieces so that the work is not simply paid as a job, but rather really celebrated within the company and makes people want to get involved. So my framework revolves around company-wide recognition and celebration, investment in an ERG leader's career growth so that whether they're at Unity or another company, they can excel. And then performance recognition from their managers who are really going to be able to have an impact on their career at Unity right here and now. And to overall create more visibility and just regular celebration of our ERG's accomplishments.
I love that. A regular celebration across different departments and leaders. I know you mentioned one of the ways that executives can get involved is they can be nominated to be executive sponsors. Can you tell me a little bit more about that process and how senior leaders can really get involved as well and show up for ERGs?
Mm-hmm. So our executive sponsors, they're relatively new. They came on in the last 6 months or so. So all of our newer ERGs that have been established this year had executive sponsors right from the start. And they escalate ERG issues up to the leadership level, but also provide more visibility into the programming that our ERGs are doing by making those announcements and amplifying the work to other senior leaders who might not already be executive sponsors. And we say that they should be at the VP level and above here at Unity. So they are people who are really influential within Unity as a whole and have a lot of direct reports that can convey this message. They provide input to our ERG's strategic plans, and they also provide mentorship to our high potential talent.
Now that mentorship piece is really critical as well, just visibility into the organization and all the work that is happening. Bringing it to a specific example, can you share how ERGs have either influenced a change or have given feedback around a product, internal policy, employee experience, or any Unity specific initiative there?
Mm-hmm. Well, in addition to always having initiatives around various heritage months and important times of year, I think that one of the most important things our ERGs have done is create a safe space for their members to come together during times of political crisis. Sometimes you just don't know who to turn to when something is happening in the news and it's affecting your day-to-day work. And that is where employee resource groups have excelled at coming into play. For example, when recent court documents were leaked about abortion rights potentially becoming more restrictive, our women's ERG was able to house space for our employees to be able to just simply express the grief that they may be feeling around something that they can't control in the outside world, and also brainstorming ideas about how unity could support people through different benefits, through different trainings. And I've seen this time and time again when there's been anti-Black violence or anti-Asian violence or anti-LGBTQ legislation also put into place. Our ERGs have really stepped up to sometimes be in those really tough leadership positions to facilitate those conversations.
Mm-hmm. Creating those spaces to have the courageous conversations, and also recognizing that all of the examples you gave as well, we can separate kind of who we are experiencing these things outside of work, inside of work, whether you're working virtually or in person as well. Just having the opportunity to talk about it with people that you work with is important, and just offering that opportunity, making the space accessible. You mentioned kind of the role of ERGs in celebrating Heritage Months and making sure that people feel seen, heard, and understood 365 days a year is important. For June 2022, I would love to ask how Unity is honoring and celebrating Pride this year, and understanding that I'm sure this is something you're doing and supporting LGBTQIA plus employees 365 days a year.
Yeah, so our LGBTQ ERG is doing a variety of activities, but some of their major initiatives are hosting a workshop on allyship, something that company-wide can be applicable and invite folks into the conversation. They're also hosting a discussion on queer representation in games. Since Unity is within the games industry, it's a really hot topic of conversation. And then they're also producing a video of their members, a compilation of folks expressing what pride means to me, to really put that employee voice behind the employee resource group. And some of our offices are also organizing in-person marches, barring COVID and their local restrictions.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of programming and also storytelling to support connectedness among team members as well. Mija, what is one of your proudest moments doing this work? I'm sure there are a lot of them, and change doesn't happen overnight, but want to celebrate the progress being made. What's one that comes to mind?
It's hard to pick one, but I think that my proudest moments in general are when I see someone that I've worked with just excel in their own career, when I see an ERG leader who may not be a DEI professional, maybe they're an engineer, or they're an accountant, or they're a product manager, and they're making an inclusion-based decision in their department and being recognized for it and celebrated for it and excelling in their own career. That's what gives me the most pride, and the main reason why I love to work in the people department, because I help my colleagues succeed at the end of the day.
I love that you don't have to be directly on a diversity, equity, and inclusion team or be in a leadership role to do this work and have an impact. Everybody can do something to really make sure that they're thinking about equity in their day-to-day processes. Mija, is there anything that I didn't ask that you want to share with folks who are listening, or maybe underscoring, 1 to 2 key takeaways you hope people really bring with them, whether it's about employee resource groups, your journey to diversity, equity, and inclusion, or a call to action for folks?
Well, I hope that people know that ERGs are doing really important work. They're really almost an extension of every organization's DEI strategy. We couldn't do the work without them. But inclusion is also so much greater than ERGs. And everyone needs to come along the inclusion journey if we hope to make real change.
Everyone needs to come along the journey. There are things that we can do tomorrow, the next day, and the day after that to continue to be intentionally inclusive and support your employee resource groups, everyone. Mija, thank you so much for being on Reimagining Company Culture this afternoon.
Thank you so much, Christina.
Of course, and as a reminder for folks who are listening, at AllVoices, we really believe in employees and employers being seen, heard, and understood, and know it's a requirement for the business to succeed overall. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.